The Devil's Arithmetic, Chapter 5. Hannah woke early, and the house was still pitch black and silent. Fearfully, she felt her way through the unfamiliar rooms in her nightgown and bare feet. The floor was cold underfoot. When she found the front door, she let out her breath slowly. Now, she thought, she'd open it and be back home. Now, please, please. Cautiously, she pulled on the door and stared out. Dawn was just beginning beyond the rim of the field. A thin strand of light spun out along the horizon between earth and sky. A rooster crowed his wake-up call into the clean air. That was when she remembered the dream. She had been at a Seder, surrounded by familiar faces, and for some reason, she hated being there. The sweet wine, the bitter herbs, she could almost taste them. She heard her aunt's voice singing Dayenu as if from miles away. Suddenly, a terrible longing for all the people in the dream overcame her, and she moaned softly. "So, you could not sleep either," Schmal's voice, deep and rumbling, came from the dark behind her. "Getting married is the most frightening thing in the world, I think. But surely my marriage is not what kept you awake. Did you have another bad dream, Chaya? I worry about you and your dreams. A girl's dreams, like her life, should be sweet and filled with honey." She nodded slowly and then turned. She could see nothing in the black room, as if sensing that, Schmal came over to stand by her side in the doorway. He was fully dressed and smoking a pipe. The curls of smoke feathered out into the open air, spreading themselves thinner and thinner, until at last they were gone. "Do you think it will be strange, little Chaya, that I, Schmal, with an arm like a tree, and, as Giddel says, a head like a stone, should be afraid of getting married?" He flexed his left arm at her and grinned. But above the grin, his eyes seemed troubled. "Being married might be scary," Hannah agreed tentatively. "Being married does not bother me," Schmal said. "But getting married? That frightens me." Not sure she understood the difference, Hannah hesitated. "Maybe," she took a deep breath and hurried on, "maybe there's something everyone is afraid of. With you, it's getting married. With me, it's shots." "Shots?" "Shots, needles." She jabbed her right finger into her left arm to demonstrate. He smiled and nodded. "You were very sick. I understand." Chaya was sick, not me. He continued smiling as if humoring her. Hannah drew in a deep breath and sighed. "My mother is afraid of snakes," she said at last. "There are not many snakes in Lublin," Schmal chuckled. "I'm not from Lublin," Hannah said. "I'm from New Rochelle, and I'm not Chaya. I'm Hannah." When Schmal's eyebrows rose up and lines furrowed his brow, he looked so fierce Hannah moved a step back. "Of course," she said quickly, "there aren't many snakes in New Rochelle either, and Chaya is my Hebrew name, not Chana because of a friend of Aunt Ava's, and Lublin is a big place, I am sure," Schmal said, scratching his beard with a gathering urgency, "and surely I'm not familiar with every avenue and street, having been there only twice in my life." "New Rochelle is not in Lublin, wherever that is. It's a city all in its own," Hannah cried. "Since when is a street a city?" Hannah could feel her voice getting louder, like Aaron's when he was scared and a panic feeling was gripping her chest. "New Rochelle is, too, a city. It's in New York." "New?" Suddenly, remembering Gittel's boyfriend Avrom, she shouted, "In America!" "And Krakow is in Siberia. I get it. A joke to help me forget my marriage fears," he laughed. "Lublin in America and Krakow in Siberia. Though dear Gittel would say it most certainly is that far to both of them." He reached out and patted Hannah on the head. "What a strange little bird you are indeed, who has found her way into our nest. Gittel is right. But come, my little Americanster, whose Yiddish is pure Lublinese, let us feed Hopel and Popel and discuss world geography some other time. Lublin in America, Krakow in Siberia." He chuckled again as he held out a cloak for her and a pair of ugly black tie shoes. Seeing that he was not taking her seriously, Hannah decided there was nothing else to do but go along. She took the clothes. The ugly shoes fit perfectly. Too perfectly. She shivered, then followed him out to the barn, where they fed hay to the workhorses, Popel and Hopel, in companionable silence. Hoping for a big breakfast, Hannah was disappointed when all Gittel put on the table was a jug of milk, black coffee, and a loaf of dark bread. No cereal? Hannah asked. No donuts? No white bread for toast? White bread? So that is what one eats in Lublin. White bread is for the rich folk, not for farmers. Schmal laughed. But yesterday you would eat nothing. Nothing at all. And today you want white bread? It is an improvement, I think. From nothing to Lublin white bread. Ah, but then I forget. You are not from Lublin. You are from Rochelle. New Rochelle. And where is old Rochelle? Gittel asked. There isn't any, Hannah said, shaking her head. What was the point in arguing with dream people? Who mixed you up? Anyway, she was starving, even if it was a dream. She reached for the milk pitcher and poured herself a glass of milk, took a swallow, and choked. It tasted awful. She looked into her glass. It's got things floating in it, she said. What things? Gittel looked. There. That is not things. That is the cream. You have no cream in the milk in Lublin? Rochelle, said Schmal. New Rochelle, Hannah insisted. Old, new, what does it matter? Asked Gittel. But if there is no old Rochelle, how can there be a new Rochelle? Schmal mused out loud. Perhaps there is a Rochelle all alone, though the child does not know it. Pilpul, Gittel said. Men love to pursue questions without answers merely for the sake of arguing. It is what they do best. Ignore him, Chaya. A rabbi he is not. Hannah nodded, and noticing Schmal wasn't eating, tried to pass him the pitcher of milk, but he waved it away. We do not follow all the old customs, Gittel and I, alone here and so far from the village, but I think it is not bad to hold some other traditions like the groom's wedding fast. Gittel snorted. Especially if your stomach is nervous. Me? Nervous? And what do I have to be nervous about? Schmal winked at Hannah as if binding her to silence. I heard you tossing and turning all night, mister. I'm not nervous. And I heard how early you got up this morning, even before the rooster crowed, even before the spring sung. Schmal seemed about to answer her back when there was a loud knock at the door. Hannah jumped at the unexpected knock. Then a small hope suddenly warmed her. Maybe the knock was some kind of signal that the dream, the strange play, was over. Maybe it was her mother or her father or Aunt Ava standing out there. She started to rise, but Gittel got up first and went to the door. When she opened it, the door framed a man with shoulders as wide as the door itself, wiry red hair and a bushy red beard. Good morning, Yitzchak, Schmal called out. Yitzchak greeted Schmal in return, but he kept his eyes on Gittel, who gave him no more than a grunt in a way of a greeting. Have some coffee, Yitzchak. It's a long way through the forest from the shuttle to here, and even longer to Fag's village, Schmal said, gesturing expansively with his hand. And have you heard about our little niece Chaya? Little is what I have heard, but what you have here is no little girl. She is a young lady, Yitzchak said, grinning at her. And you are feeling better? I see good color in your cheeks. Hannah looked down at the table, embarrassed by the butcher's compliments, and Gittel reached over in front of her and took the coffee pot up, placing it down again with a solid thwack in front of Yitzchak. Taking the pot up eagerly, Yitzchak poured himself a cupful that slopped over the rim. Gittel made a small snick of annoyance between her teeth and wiped up the spill with the edge of her apron. Almost shyly, Yitzchak smiled up at her, took a deep drink of coffee, and then turned slowly to Schmal. I have 2 cages of chickens outside, Schmal, my wedding gift. Should I leave them or take them to Fag's village with us? Leave them, Yitzchak, Schmal said, with our great thanks. After all, Fag and I will be returning here for the wedding night, and she will see them then. If she sees something but your blue eyes, then she is a fool, Gittel said. She should be counting your curls, not her gifts. We will load the chickens in the wagon with the other wedding gifts. Those schnorrers in Viask will not think we do not honor our own. Schmal laughed. Gittel and Chaya will stay the night with Fag's people and come back home in the morning. It would not do. The walls are thin. He actually blushed, and Gittel put her hand on his shoulder. Do not say it step by step in front of the child, she said. I did no such thing, Gittel. I was careful. I said only that the walls are thin, and so they are. He meant no disrespect, Yitzchak added quickly. Hush, Yitzchak the butcher. Do not tell me in my house what is and what is not. Gittel's eyes sparked. Hannah interrupted. But I know what a wedding night is. All three stared at her, and Yitzhak laughed nervously. You see, he said, I told you she was a young woman. You said a young lady, and a lady is what she is not if she knows such things, Gittel said. It's on General Hospital, Hannah began. Gittel turned to Hannah and shook her head. So in Lublin, the hospitals tell you about these things? Then I do not think much of those hospitals, and I think even less of Lublin. You know so much, my little yeshiva bocher. Telling you anything more is carrying straw to Egypt. Ah! She threw her hands up in the air and spun around to face Yitzhak. And you finish your coffee. Look how the morning flies, and we sit here gabbling about wedding nights, which will be here soon enough. I have still to clean the house. I will not have Fag coming here, fresh from her father's house, where there is a serving girl to clean, and think me and all in this Schlettel Slovens, we have to leave before noon. That is why I came early, Gittel, so I might help. My children, too. Yitzhak stood, the coffee cup still in his hand. The children? Oi! And where did you leave them? Outside in cages like the chickens? She clicked her tongue and went to the door. Opening it, she waved her hand in greeting. Reuven, Zipporah, come in. Two little blonde-haired children, no more than 3 or 4 years old, suddenly appeared in the doorway, silently holding hands. Go sit at the table with my niece Chaya, the young lady over there, Gittel said. She will give you milk with things in it and tell you stories of places called New This and Old That. Then you can go outside with her and feed the horses and chickens. The horses are fed, Shmuel said. The chickens I will tend to myself with Yitzhak and the children. Chaya can help with you here in the house. There is enough to do. Yitzhak's massive hands made surprisingly dainty circles in the air. My children and I will take care of the animals. Zipporah is wonderful about collecting eggs, a real specialist, and Reuven knows just when to shoo them off the nest. He smiled down at his children, who looked up at him adoringly. We are sorry if we disturbed you. We thought we would come over early and, in that way, help. Help? Gittel sniffed, but she smiled at the children. No sooner had Yitzhak disappeared outside with Reuven and Zipporah than Shmuel laughed out loud. I swear, Gittel, that man is already henpecked and not even married to you yet. He is a monster, Gittel murmured. Imagine leaving those sweet, motherless children outside like chickens in cages. She began to swipe at the table furiously with a wet rag. I thought he was nice, Hannah ventured. Nice? Gittel's voice rose. But then you know so much about raising motherless children too, I suppose. Hannah closed her mouth. Argument was useless. Instead, she began to clear away the dishes with silent efficiency and seemed to be the only one who was surprised that she was actually helping.